Welcome to a video tutorial from Valentia Photography Workshops and me, Stephen Power. This one is about the wrong way and the right way to use leading lines for more impact in your photographs and to draw the eye to the subject. Hi, I'm Stephen Power. I'm a photographer and photography teacher based on Valentia Island in County Kerry. In this video, I want to talk to you about leading lines and how they can help your composition by drawing the eye into the photograph and often into the main subject of the photograph. And this is done usually quite subtly, but there can be obviously other less subtle ways of doing it, and both can work well. It's a technique that can be very useful for landscape photography and architecture and lots of other photography. So I'm going to start by having a look at leading lines that don't really work very well and why they don't. So the first image I want to look at is this one of a jetty with waves in the background and pebbles in the foreground. And by the way, all of the photographs I'll show you are mine, so if I sound a bit harsh on them, it's just because I'm my own worst critic and I'm not critiquing anybody else's images. So this one really doesn't do anything at all. It doesn't go anywhere. The waves aren't big enough to be a part of the image or the main part, the main focus of the image. The pebbles give some foreground detail but really don't do anything. And although this is a line, it doesn't really serve a purpose, and the image is quite lifeless and boring, to be honest. So just because you've got a line doesn't necessarily mean it's going to give you a good picture. Now, there's a definite line in this one, but again, it's similar to the other one in that, we've got some birch trees here on both sides, and a car vaguely visible in the background. The line really doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't do anything. And again, the whole image is not very interesting. Now, we've got a line with a subject. The problem with this one is that the line misses the subject. It doesn't lead. It leads to nowhere, round a blind bend, so it doesn't actually go anywhere. And your eye is almost fighting with the line and the main subject, the house, for interest, really. So and sort of cuts the picture into two. So again, this is an example of a leading line that doesn't really work very well. Now, this is a bit more subtle. We've certainly got a line. We've got two lines, really. We've got the actual path or the bridge itself, and then the side of the bridge. And again, it doesn't go anywhere, but it could be argued that there is some interest in the details of the bridge. And this foreground detail here of the two bars and the light seems to give the picture some interest. So to me, it's almost there, but not quite. It's a little bit more interesting than the other two, but the line isn't really leading your eye into something. It's basically showing you something in the foreground. Now, we're getting a bit closer to a leading line that works. Basically, this is just a line and is literally a train line. Again, it doesn't go anywhere, but there's some nice, interesting foreground detail. So this is probably the most obvious use of a leading line, and you've got this vanishing point at the far end, sort of disappearing into nothing. The line here are the steps going down to these houses at the bottom with the graffiti on both sides, and gives it some interest, and your eye follows down. Again, not absolutely perfect, but working a little bit better than some of the previous examples. I quite like this one, although the horizon is cut into two, but there are lines everywhere. So we've got the lines of the handrails at the bottom and the handrails at the top. The people themselves almost form lines, certainly going down into the image. And you've got this almost V-shape line pointing straight at St. Paul's Cathedral in the background. So for me, this one works quite well because the lines converge on the main subject. As with the previous one, this is an example of a leading line working quite well in architecture. So the lines here are the lights, obviously pointing to the entrance of Limerick University, which I think they make nice foreground details and actually work quite well as lines taking you in to this area of the photograph. This one's quite subtle, and although, as with the previous image, the line doesn't go directly to the mountain here, Guido, it actually does, in a subtle way, take your eye towards it. So the road is actually leading towards the mountain. This is O'Connell's pub in County Meath. It's famous for a Guinness advert, and I photographed it for the Times travel supplement. I like this one because the building itself, the pub itself, is the line. And also this area of pavement in front of it is the line leading towards the ruined abbey in the background there. It's subtle, but I think it works quite well having it side on to the pub rather than face on. This is another example of a subtle leading line, which is a photograph of Dunangus on Inishmore in the Aran Islands, an old stone fort here at the top. So the line starts with the path at the bottom, but also with the people, and then works around with the stone walls to another path and more people who also act as part of the line until you have people right at the very top going into the entrance. I actually believe this is a good example of a very subtle leading line, and carries your eye through to different interest points on the photograph. Another subtle use of leading lines, Ross Castle in Killarney. So we have the bridge and the path here, and then the path following on up to the castle itself. And finally, a fairly obvious use of a leading line, Valentia Island Lighthouse and the path leading to it. The line is made stronger, I think, by the use of the colour separation in the ropes and the poles along the path. So that was a quick overview of how leading lines can work in your photographs, and I hope you'll give your images some thought when you're next out with your camera as to how you can add a leading line into them to give more impact and to bring the viewer's eye to the main subject. I'll see you next time.